Hello and welcome back to my craft room. I've got a really fun new thing to try. Well, new to me. It's a very old craft, but I've never tried it before, and that is button making. My husband gave me for Christmas this lovely book. I did drop a very strong hint and send him a link. And it's by Gina Barrett, so that's Gina of Gina B Silk Works. I'm sure lots of people watching this video will have heard of her. I will put links to the website, and also I will put a link to her amazing YouTube channel, which I've just had a look at. There's so much there. I've just subscribed. I can't believe I've never subscribed to before. I'm so excited. This book is amazing. Quick glimpse at the YouTube channel a minute. Here we go. Gina B Silk Works. All kinds of things, all kinds of different buttons to make, and other techniques as well. There's an absolute feast here of inspiration and useful information, and she explains things really clearly. I would have loved to have done. I might go back. She obviously did this back in 2022, one button a week, and she has this whole series of videos showing community contributions where people have shared on the Facebook page the buttons that they've made for that week's challenge. And I might work back through and do this, make a little book of buttons or a little box of buttons or something. Itching to jump into this, like I really need another hobby, don't I? I've got everything I need. I think that the basic tools to get started are very simple. I happen to have pretty much what I need to start having a go. I'm going to work my way through the book. I'll give you a quick flick of the book in a sec. So let's stop waffling on and go to the desk. So here's the book. Here's a better look at the book. Passementary Workshop Manual. Look at these. And I know Gina's done a lot of work making authentic replicas of buttons for historical costumes for museums and things like that. Here's a whole list of the different kinds of buttons: thread wrapped, ring buttons, needlework buttons, lace buttons, knots and embroidered. I want to work my way through and try all of these. A little bit about the history, and I talk about the sort of basic tools that you need. Here's some of the different button moulds that you can use. So these ones that you can see here, these kind of MDF ones, these are I've sent for a few sets of different sizes from Gina B Silk Works to try out. I didn't, not these domed ones, they were a bit pricey. I thought I need to make sure I'm really going to love doing this before I spend that on them, but the MDF sets were quite reasonable. You can get lots of different wooden and MDF discs on Amazon and things, but none of them have got the central hole, and for most of the techniques the central hole is really useful. You can also use curtain rings and washers and things, so I will be experimenting with those. You can, as she explains here, you can use cardboard and plastic and all kinds of things, leather shapes, felt. Today just about anything can be used as a button mould. Obviously you need to be aware of it if you want it to be washable and stuff like that. So I'm going to experiment a bit. I've got this like beads here. I just love the colours of these though. I'm a bit loath to use these because I like them as they are, but I thought they could be really handy. Be interesting to see if I could do them as small as some of those tiny ones there. I'd love to try some cloth ones and be able to recreate those little vintage linen buttons that I love so much. I'm going to try this bead in a minute. That's going to be my first project, a silk wrapped bead, a satin wrapped bead. I've got some other wooden beads. Now these haven't got the holes in the middle, but for these techniques I won't need them. Save that one for when I do need a hole in the middle. I think that would be an interesting shape. I did think maybe, now if you're a regular viewer, I keep saying that recently, you may recall that I've been making some things out of the empty nightlight shells, and when you pull the thing that holds the wick out of the bottom, you can see a little bit of wick left in that one. You get these little and I put it to one side thinking, I wonder if I can do something with them, with miniatures or something. I've just put it to one side a minute, and now I'm just thinking I could maybe use them. There's a bit of wick left in there, I'm going to have to get it out. I could maybe use them as the bases for buttons. I might need to, if I do that, I might need to just use a little pair of wire cutters or something to clip this jaggedy bit off of here, because that's sticking out too much. But wouldn't that be good? Because that would be quite a nice size for buttons. So I'm going to try and work my way through this book, more or less. All sorts of information, useful information here about how to size buttons and things like that. The first thing she covers is covering moulds with thread, and she's done a bead here. So I reckon this bead with a nice large hole is going to be good. She just does suggest using something to a bead reamer, or I think I've got a needle file to just get rid of any jaggedy edges, so I'm going to do that in a minute. I'm lucky that I haven't had most of these things already. I've got some beautiful threads to choose from here. These lovely variegated kind of perlé cottons. I think for this smaller bead I'm going to use some of these finer threads here. This would look lovely, but it's a bit slippy, so I don't think I'm going to try that for my first attempt. Obviously the smaller the bead, the finer I need to make the thread. I think some of this variegated rainbow thread would be quite pretty to try. I'm gonna go with that one for this first attempt. Then she shows this spiral wrap, so I might try that on this, perhaps this larger round one here. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do those hopefully on today's video. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to also need obviously a little pair of scissors. I'm going to try using my old favourite chenille needle, because it's got a large eye for the threads, but it's got a sharp little point. I don't know, I just find these needles handy for all sorts of things. I think that's going to work, hopefully. Yeah, a few other beads to try. I thought maybe beads like these little plastic ones that I wouldn't use. I'm not sure what else I would use them for really, except as the base for something. But it'd be quite interesting to see if I could wrap those and make little dinky kind of silk wrap buttons that I could then stitch onto and things. So yeah, I've got quite a few beads that I wouldn't sort of use. They're not sort of pretty enough to use in jewellery or whatever, but as a basis of something like this, great. And the other thing I thought is that I could use, I've got cardboard and I've got hole punches. Oh, so what I thought I could do is punch a few of these. Let's see what 6 look like. Stack them together. Yeah, that's going to be about the same thickness as MDF would be. Glue them together and then punch a hole through the middle to make my button form. So I'm going to have a go at that as well, just to see how that goes, and maybe try a spiral wrap on that. She also then goes into covering moulds with fabric and then doing a spiral wrap, different kind of spiral wrap to smooth out the creases in the fabric. I want to try all of that. Making cloth moulds, different kinds of cloth moulds. I make ball shapes and dome shapes. Hard cloth moulds, you do that with the flour and water paste, definitely you need to try that. So yeah, rolled toggle. I'd love to like make a little, in the same way as I'm doing the dictionary of stitches, do a little book of buttons, different techniques. Lots of information about stitching, even going into different kinds of buttonhole stitches. Really nicely explained and nice diagrams, and backed up by videos on a YouTube channel, which is why I ended up looking at that this morning. Lots of different stitches. I'm already familiar with most of these stitches, but I had never heard of grappe stitch or the Dorset variation of grappe stitch. I might have to add that into the vintage dictionary of stitches. I don't think that's one that Christine covered. I can't remember it anyway. Rope stitch I haven't tried, but I think the others I'm all familiar with. Shisha I've done, but I hadn't seen this medieval kind of like very similar in a way to the Shisha method, I suppose. Well, it's like the beginning of the Shisha before you put the sort of blanket stitches around it. Apparently they used to use that for flat gems in medieval. This method of attaching small flat gems can be seen on some medieval ecclesiastical trims. So I'm going to try some of these basic techniques that she talks about first to sort of get my hand in, and then I want to try some thread wrapped buttons. And here all of these buttons are numbered, and instructions for all of these are in the following pages. So excited to get into this. What a beautiful, colourful collection I will hopefully end up with. Now, one very useful thing that you can work around, you can find different ways of doing it. You can use clamps and things instead, but you need something to hold your thread to make what they call a warp, which is a long bundle of several threads. She says at least 6. And then you wrap that whole bundle around the bead rather than wrap one thread at a time. So it helps to have, she's suggesting two fixed points about 50 centimetres apart. I know that my glass mat here is about 50 centimetres. Now, she does suggest that you can use clamps and things, or find some way. You just need 2 secure points to wrap the thread around to create this long bundle. I'm very lucky that I happen to have just the thing. Now, years ago I had this, I think it was free, yes, on Paper Crafter magazine, and it's a bow maker, and there are different ways you can wrap ribbon around to create bows. Now, that's quite handy, quite nice. So I had that, and I was talking about it with Tom, and I wanted to do some more elaborate bows at the time, and Tom, this is my son Tom, most of you will know, has a 3D printer. In fact, he has 3 3D printers. And he made me this. Look at that. And it's really nice because it's really sturdy. Obviously, it's lovely that he put my name in there. How cute is that? And it's got these lovely metal rods that he cut to fit these holes. So I could do much more elaborate things with these 3 rows. And it's going to be absolutely perfect for doing this kind of thing as well. So at the moment, I just need 1 point. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. And I'm going to put one of these at each end, and that'll work just to create my warp. Really, you could do it, you could just get someone to hold a hand out for you. I'll put that stone on there to weight that down. And another stone on here to weight that down. And now I've got two points about 50 centimetres apart. You can't see them, they're just either side, just out of shot. So now I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to wrap this, make a small warp by placing 2 fixed points about 50 centimetres apart. Wind the thread around these 2 points at least 6 times to create the warp. I'm just using a little bit of washi tape to stick the end of this thread down, and I'm just going to wind this back and forth. She says at least 6 times to create the warp. Okay, so that's 2. Got that there. So I've ended up with this little bundle of, let's bring it down a little bit, little bundle of threads, 7 there. And now this is where the handy dandy little tool that Tom made me is going to come in. This is where you now need to wind the warp, which is this, between 2 fixed points now spaced quite closely together in a figure of 8, and that helps keep the tension even. Apparently expert passementiers, I guess, used to have it wound onto a tapered stick or something that we would use to keep the tension. But this is going to be a lot more user friendly, I think. She reckons even a beginner can do this. So let's see. If I can do it, anyone can do it. The camera's doing really weird things with this. It's actually got a... No, that's more like it. Like that sort of mid-grey colour. Camera's overcompensating. Let's put it about there, I reckon. What Gina says is that if she's doing a sort of longer job, she'd probably knot this, but she just taped it down. So I'm gonna try just taping it down, see how I get on. And then I'm gonna try and not twist this too much, but I can always untwist as I'm working with it anyway. So I'm gonna try and keep it fairly twist free, but okay. So that's what I've got now. So that's just gonna, this will be my working end, and that will just help to keep things nice and taut for me. I'm probably going to want a little bit more. Right, so now I thread a needle with a long piece of strong thread. I think I'm going to use this. I'm going to try first with this little chenille needle. It may turn out to be too fat, I'm not sure. We'll see. Might have to change it part way through. It needs to be long enough to pass through the mould, and if possible a rounded needle. Okay, that's the wrong one then. That's a good one. Okay, so this is, I think this is actually a chenille needle, but it has become quite blunt. So I'm going to use that, because I think that one is going to be too fat. Okay. I just sort out my needle book. I've got it all in a mess and nothing's in the right place. So a strong thread, but I'm using it single. Tie the thread to the end of the warp with 2 or 3 half hitches. So here's the end of the warp. This is where it helps already to have that tension on it. And I might just put one, just to give that a bit more weight, I'm going to put one of my stones on it. Just so I can really pull on that if I need to. Yeah, that works well. It's quite nice that it's, so I'll put 2. It's quite a large base, so there's room to do that. That's good. Currently I do this by holding the thread alongside the warp, making that backwards, it's not backwards C shape, it's a C shape, and then putting the needle underneath and up through the loop. Let's do. Okay, and that seems to have pulled that pretty tight. Okay, it's a bit scary, but that should be secure. And now I'm going to just trim the end pretty close to those knots. Right, on to phase 3. I'm ready. I can do this. So I'm going to take my threaded needle down through the bead. I'm going to pull so that end, that knotted end, goes just inside, not all the way through, not even halfway, but just inside. And then I'm going to, oops, I'm hoping, like most things, this is more awkward at the beginning than it is once you get going. And then I'm just going to turn it like that, so it starts to wrap the bead. And then I'm going to take my needle, so the thread at the moment is coming out that on the right hand side. I'm going to take it right over the top of the warp and down on the left hand side, back down through the bead again. Then I'm going to just slightly pull to pull the end just slightly inside again, not all the way through, just inside. And now I'm going to turn it and flip the bead up the other way again to make the next wrap, making sure my threads are lying nice and straight, making sure I keep enough tension to keep those ends in. Oh, it's going to take some practice, this is. See, look, that end is wanting to pop back out again there. Can you see that? Because I'm not keeping enough tension here, so I need to pull on there a little bit. That's it. And then back over that warp and down the left hand side again and put it slightly inside. Okay. And then turn it and flip it up again. I'm just going to have to bring myself down a bit more warp in a minute. Okay, I'm getting the measure of this now. Oh no, I'm not. No, I'm not. See, I'm letting that come out the bottom again. I spoke too soon. And now which bit do I need to pull on? That bit. Okay. That's not looking bad, is it? It's quite interesting that the effect that variegated thread is having. Okay, so what will happen if I let this go now so that I can unwrap a bit more? Oh, it's not too bad. Okay, so I can unwrap a little bit more to work with. So now I've lost the rhythm now. Turn and flip it up. Keep the tension on here so that what I keep doing is forgetting to keep the tension on, so that thread that's holding that last loop in is coming loose. So I need to keep that tension. I can see why this needs to be a strong thread. Excellent. I can imagine that once you get into the rhythm of it, this is going to be something that's easier to do quickly. A bit like with crochet, once you stop and start to think about what you're doing, it's confusing, but it's going a little bit gappy there, but that will close up as I go round, I assume. That's not bad, is it? Okay, I'm going to do one more wrap and then I need to pull out a bit more of my warp. I hope I've got enough warp there. Turn. It's that getting the right direction of the turn that I was finding a bit confusing, but I think if I don't stop to think too hard, it's okay. Pretty. Oh, I'm chuffed with this for first attempt. Yeah, a little bit worried I'm not going to have enough to wrap the whole thing on the warp that I've prepared. Because it said to do a 50cm warp. It didn't say anything about changing that to suit your project. Oh, I've got a twist there in my threads, look. I think it's too late to take that out now. I might have to just live with that one. Be hugely satisfying to make your own buttons for really special outfits. I know a lot of people who get into doing this button making are what do they call it, when they recreate historical events, you know, I forgot what they call it. I'm getting a bit of a pickle now because I've got something overlapping there that I shouldn't have. I have a feeling it will be a little easier when I'm not doing it out at arm's length so the camera can see, which is always a problem. I'm losing the turn thing now. Whoop. No, I've got the turn going wrong now. Well, you can see I'm being a little bit cack-handed, but it is my first ever ever go. You are witnessing the first ever go. So based on that, I would say with a bit of perseverance, it's doable. I'm really worried I haven't got enough warp thread here, and I wonder if I should have made my warp thicker, if I should have made it 10 strands, because it's quite a fine thread, 10 strands instead. So if need be, what I'll do is start it again to get it right, but we'll see. Maybe this will be just enough. The turning thing is still confusing me. It's strange. I can see this would become a very absorbing hobby. Now I'm starting to lose tension there because it's not knotted off, it's just taped down, and I've not got many winds left now. I'm not able to pull too hard, which is making it a bit tricky. But overall, I'm quite encouraged. Let's see if I can manage to finish this one. Come on, let's knot that round there. Right, I've used up all the thread and it seems to have been just about enough to cover it. It is far from perfect. I've got twisted threads there and all sorts, but for my very first attempt I'm really encouraged by that. So I'm just going to take this last one up here. There's a slight gap. I've ended up not going all the way around in line. I've ended up going back and sort of covering a couple of gaps. I haven't done it properly at all. If you want to see a proper tutorial, go and check out Gina B Silkworks YouTube channel. I would definitely link to that. All I'm doing here is showing that if I can do it, anybody can do it, I think. Okay, so I think the idea now is that you do a couple of half hitches, and I should probably still have it at tension, but I haven't got enough thread left. So I'm just doing that half hitch knot like I did at the beginning, where you make that C shape and go up through the loop. And let's just do a couple more. Just that little kind of what I think of as a macrame knot. Yeah, that should be pretty secure, I reckon. Trim that off. Now if I take that back down one last time, that's pretty neat, isn't it? I might just go, I don't know if you're meant to, but I might just go on down a couple of times. Yeah. Ah, well chuffed with that. For my very first attempt, I think that variegated thread looks really pretty. Just as it is, without doing any further decoration, that would be quite a cute little button, wouldn't it, on something. Oh look, I've got a gap. I thought I could see a bit of a shine. Oh, let's just rearrange those threads a bit there. It's fine now. No twinkles. Okay, let's just snip that off. Well chuffed. Shall we have a go at a spiral wrap? A quicker way of covering moulds, especially useful when you don't want the hole to become blocked, and to cover flat moulds. I'm wondering if I could just use this or my stack of, should we try a stack of card just to see that the stack of card will work? Let's just stick them together with a glue stick. I reckon that'll be enough. The sets of, I think I need a new glue stick, that's drying up. The sets of button moulds from Gina B Silkworks were actually quite reasonable. There were MDF ones, wooden ones, plastic ones, perspex ones. I just prefer the idea of being able to upcycle if I can. Actually, if I didn't use this kind of card, if I used like corrugated card even would do, wouldn't it? If it wasn't something that had to be washable. And if you just wanted to make a decorative button to match something, you could use an existing button as your button mould, couldn't you? And just work over that, cover that with fabric or thread. But if you want to do some of the techniques, need to have that central hole. Couldn't find anywhere that was selling just wooden disc with a central hole. Washers, I will try things like washers if I've got some. I just didn't want to buy in anything else specially really, but in the end I thought I would do. I thought I'll just try the button forms once. But part of the idea of it is that it'd be nice to make things out of what I've already got, and it's cheaper than buying buttons. So if I go buying button moulds, it's okay. So that is my stack of card. Of course, one of the advantages of like doing layers and layers of thin card like that is I can use my punches, whatever shape punch I want to use, to stamp them out and then stick them together. Whereas my punches wouldn't punch thick, something that thick they wouldn't go through. So have I got it here? Yeah, a crocodile which will go through really thick things. So I could with this. Could just mark my hole in the centre and punch through. So I reckon that would be a good alternative to if it's not one that needs to be washed, a good alternative to a bought button form or button mould. This kind of thing. One of these lovely variegated threads of this, I think. Which one should we do? That one's going to be funny on the camera. That one's not ideal on the camera. I think one of these. So beautiful, aren't they beautiful? I'll go the green. I'm in the green mood. This time I've made my warp again about 50 centimetres long, and I've laid them out together, and I've tried a few times to straighten them out so there's no twist in them, but they just keep twisting together, so I think I'll have to just sort the twist as I go along. And this time they suggest using some wax on the mould to stop it being so slippery, I guess. Help it to kind of stick a little bit as well, I imagine. So I'm going to use this that I've got for waxing the thread. I'm just going to rub a bit of this beeswax on both sides, maybe on the edges as well. Just has made it feel more grippy. And then the idea is that you hold the threads at the back. I'll hold them at the back like that. Wrap it over. Oh, let go of the end. Let go, I let go. So frustrating. Okay, try again. Now it's twisted, which we don't want. And then I'm just going to keep wrapping all the way around, but rotating the button slightly, just doing a bit of a anti-clockwise turn each time, so I'm making like a really shallow cross there. Try and stop my warp from twisting. Lost it all again. Takes patience to learn these skills. To my mind, if a craft is worth learning, it needs to be a little bit difficult when you first start. So I need to make sure that wrap is going completely down the centre of the circle each time, but just with a slight rotation. I don't want the wrap to go off to one side or it's going to slip off and it won't make a nice pattern. And I'm having to also keep untwisting these as I go, because it won't look so pretty if the threads are all twisted. It won't have that same kind of satisfying pattern. Okay, just turn slightly. It'd be nice when I can let go of those ends at the back. Right, okay, they're nearly in now. But not completely, look, they're gone again. I'm going to start again, and this time I'm going to make the ends go all the way across at the back, because I think that's what's making it difficult for myself. I might even cheat slightly and stick. Shall I stick the ends down? I bet proper button makers everywhere are going to be cringing at this, but whatever helps me at this stage. Okay, I'm going to do that. It's not going to hold them completely, but it's going to help. Okay. I still need to keep my hand on there, because otherwise I can't put enough tension on it. They will come adrift, but it's just going to help to hold everything in place a little bit for me. Okay. You need to adapt and find your own way. So I'm going, making sure I go right kind of halfway across the circle, not to either side. Okay. It is helping having those ends controlled a little bit at the back with that tape. As I say, it's not going to show at the end, is it? And you're not going to tell anyone, are you? Shh. This thread gives such a pretty effect. I've ended up, in the course of doing this, I'm now working kind of upside down to what I was doing at the beginning, but it just feels more natural to me. And I think, as with many of these kind of things, you do sort of find your own way of doing, that you're comfortable. This is only just going to be enough. Is it going to be enough? There we go. That's quite pretty. I love the effect with the variegated thread again. I've got an annoying twist there, which I'm going to try and take out. One of Gina's little tips was to always keep a needle ready threaded with strong thread nearby. And I can see why. Okay, so what I want to do now, I think it says to finish with a couple of half hitches. Yeah, work a few half hitches with a strong thread to secure the threads at the back, and weave the end under and trim close. Right, so I've done 3 little half hitch knots there. Oh, I've now lost that last wrap. It's gone funny now. Okay, let's just remake that. Okay. Oh, this is going to take some patience and practice to get right. Okay, I think it probably would help to have, for me, to have, before I get to the last wraps, have that needle ready threaded with a few half hitches around the ends, so that when I get to that last bit I can secure it straight away without having to let go. My wrap is all yucky, look. Can I live with it, or do I want to start again? It's not right. It's not right. I'm going to start again. But I think this time I'm going to have this, just leave this like this ready for the end. Because I know now this is about the right length. That worked for me to have that taped on the back, so that's my little hack. So I'm going to do this again now off camera, so I can have it under my nose a bit rather than trying to do it at arm's length. And hopefully I might re-beeswax it as well. definitely does help to make it feel more kind of grippy. And hopefully I'll be back in a minute to show you the finished thing, and then that's the end of this video, and then next time I'm going to go on and try the fabric ones. Finished it, and I did another little one, a little dinky one, using one of the little wick holders from the bottom of the night light shells. So I'm really pleased to have found a use from them, because that's a perfect little button size. Love that. And that was 2 layers. I went round with a 50cm warp of using 6 thicknesses of this thread, which is just kind of normal sewing thread. It's maybe a little bit thicker than normal machine thread, I don't know, there's not a lot in it. I went round once, fastened it off, and then did another lot over the top, which kind of padded it all out more. Love the look of that, just like that, without adding any extra bits to it. And that's how it's fastened off on the back there. Yeah, and there's the whoops, that's a full size one. So it's just done on that wooden bead. I'm chuffed to bits with them. I think it's a really good start, and I can't wait to start working my way through the rest of the book. That's it from me today. Let me know what you think. Have you ever tried making buttons? There's so many different kinds. I mean, there are so many ways to make buttons, and they are actually quite expensive to buy these days, especially if you want something really special to finish off with, something you've spent a long time making. Speaking of which, in case you're wondering what that is behind me, that's the beginnings of a makeover project. So I'm going to start making that. I've cut down an old shirt of my husband's, and I'm going to make a waistcoat, and I've used some of the scraps from bazaar packs. So I've just started patchworking onto one of the halves there, and I'm doing some slow stitching on it. I am recording the process, but it's a little bit tricky to record. I'm just going to wait until I'm at least halfway through, and then do a little put together some clips and stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in seeing how that turns out, or how I got to that point, then watch this space. It won't be long. And meanwhile, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again really soon.